Now Trump has just given brand new pardons to 77 people who were involved in the fake electors scheme and other schemes to try to overthrow the results of the 2020 election and keep him in power, even though he lost that election to Joe Biden and lost it by a lot. New pardons for 77 people, including all the fake electors from multiple states, and John Eastman and Kenneth Chesebro and Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis, the whole four seasons total landscaping goon squad that you remember from the January 6th investigation in Congress, and in some cases from our own reporting here on this show about the fraudulent elector slates that submitted fake paperwork to the National Archives in Congress in order to try to get their states counted as having voted for Trump, even though their states actually voted for Biden. 77 pardons.
Welcome back to the Satirical News Dolls, the only show where American democracy is held together by chewing gum, expired coupons, and Rachel Maddow's blood pressure medication. Now look, when Rachel Maddow starts her show by listing 77 pardons like she's reading the world's worst graduation ceremony, you know we're in trouble. Trump pardoned the fake electors, the knockoff lawyers, Rudy Sweat Beads of Justice Giuliani, Sidney the Kraken is actually a goldfish Powell, and Kenneth, I swear I'm not making this up, Chesebro. Sir, this isn't a pardon list. This is a Marvel lineup if the Avengers were sponsored by Four Seasons Total Landscaping. Rachel said Trump pardoned the whole goon squad. And honestly, at this point, if you opened a Cheesecake Factory menu, you'd find at least 12 of these people listed under appetizers, light treason. And Trump acts like he's Noah loading the ark, except instead of animals, he's rescuing every person who tried to overthrow the government in alphabetical order. This man handed out pardons like Costco samples. Would you like a free taste of authoritarianism? It pairs well with white grievance and total legal immunity. And the fact that there were 77 of them, 77. That's not a pardon list. That's a new season of American Horror Story. Candace, your thoughts?
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have blacked out when you said 70. 7 pardons. For a second, I thought you were reading the winning Powerball numbers for the Insurrection Mega Millions. Let me say this slow for the people in the back who still think coup is pronounced like the car brand coupe. Trump didn't pardon a group. He pardoned an entire cast list. He pardoned enough people to reboot Glee, except this version would be called Treason, the Musical. Fake electors, all pardoned. Rudy Giuliani, pardoned. And may I remind you, the last time Rudy was coherent, Blockbuster Video was still open. Sidney Powell, pardoned. The woman who tried to sue a voting machine for emotional distress. This isn't a legal decision. This is a sketchy nightclub guest list where the bouncer is yelling, if you tried to destroy democracy, get in here for free drinks before midnight. Rachel Maddow didn't report this nonsense. She performed a supernatural ritual trying to keep democracy's ghosts from floating through her studio walls. And Rachel is right. Trump isn't handing out pardons. He's handing out get-out-of-coup cards like it's treason monopoly. Honestly, I'm convinced Trump doesn't even read the names. He just picks people based on vibes.
This weekend, we learned that one of the guys Trump pardoned from January 6th, the guy who fired off a gun during the attack on the Capitol and then got a pardon from Trump, we learned this weekend that he has just been rearrested, this time on charges of kidnapping and sexual assault. A few weeks ago, another January 6th guy who was pardoned by Trump was arrested again after threatening to assassinate Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries. That came a few weeks after the guy who wore the Camp Auschwitz sweatshirt on January 6th, who was also pardoned by Trump, came a few weeks after he was arrested again after his fighting dogs attacked 4 people and put them all in the hospital. That came on the heels of another January 6th guy getting convicted on child pornography charges. That came on the heels of another January 6th guy convicted of plotting to kill FBI agents. That came on the heels of another January 6th guy convicted in connection with a home invasion. That came on the heels of another January 6th guy who just pled guilty to soliciting a minor for sex. That came on the heels of another January 6th guy, woman actually, who just got 10 years for killing someone in a DUI. That came on the heels of another January 6th convict who was arrested in a string of thefts of industrial copper. It came on the heels of another January 6th convict who was shot by a sheriff's deputy while allegedly resisting arrest. All of those people, including the Camp Auschwitz guy, and the child pornography guy, and the soliciting sex from a child guy, and the aggravated sexual assault guy, all beneficiaries of pardons from President Donald Trump, and now 77 more added to that list. 77 more people pardoned, all of whom tried to help Donald Trump overthrow the results of an election he lost so he could stay in power anyway.
Rachel Maddow just read a list so disturbing it sounded like the world's worst Spotify playlist. Every single person Trump pardoned apparently said, "Thanks, Mr. President. I promise to turn my life around by next Tuesday when I get arrested again." Let's review this parade of patriotic psychos. One guy kidnapped someone and committed sexual assault. One threatened to assassinate Hakeem Jeffries. One unleashed attack dogs like he was training for the Westminster insurrection show. One had child pornography. One plotted to kill FBI agents. One did a home invasion. One solicited a minor. One killed someone in a DUI. One was arrested for stealing copper like he's on season 12 of Breaking Bad, Home Depot edition. One guy got shot resisting arrest, which honestly is the least surprising part. If you gave me this list of crimes and asked me, "John, what connects all these people?" I would guess Florida, not Trump pardoned all of them. This is not a political movement. This is the world's most chaotic group chat. Rachel didn't report the news. She narrated the criminal justice Hunger Games.
John, I had to pause my lavender chamomile tea because the list Rachel read sounded like the lost tape of America's Most Wanted. Every single person Trump pardoned immediately turned around and said, "Let me speed run the crime category on Twitch. Kidnapping, sexual assault, assassination threats, dog attacks, child porn, plotting to kill FBI agents, home invasions, soliciting a minor, a DUI homicide, copper theft, and someone getting shot resisting arrest." Sir, that is not a list. That is a Mad Libs written by Satan's paralegal. No wonder the DOJ left. These criminals have more sequels than the Fast and Furious franchise. Trump is like, "You committed what felony? Don't worry, baby. Daddy's got a pardon for that." These aren't pardons. They're punch cards. Commit 9 felonies, get the 10th one free. Rachel Maddow sounded like she needed a nap, a neck brace, and a rabbi. This is not politics. This is America's Got Felons. And apparently, Trump is the judge, the host, the sponsor, and the guy selling merch outside the courthouse.
Washington Post reports today that in the less than 10 months since Donald Trump has been back in office, thousands of attorneys have left the Justice Department in Washington. They've quit or taken a buyout or been fired. Justice Connection, an advocacy group that tracks departures from DOJ, puts the total number of Justice Department employees who have left, lawyers and others, at over 5,000. And most of those vacancies remain unfilled, in part because the Trump DOJ is having trouble attracting applicants. It's hard to attract top talent to a place that sets its reputation on fire every single day and where employees are regularly purged for ideological sins. One of those firings, which at the time just seemed like, another brick in the wall in terms of what the Trump administration was doing to DOJ. Now, in retrospect, it's starting to feel like a really important part of how Trump has been changing our country and has been trying to take apart our democracy. And that was the firing, the sort of low-profile firing in March of the Justice Department's pardon attorney. Her name was Liz Oyer. She said she was fired for, of all things, refusing to recommend restoring the gun rights of right-wing actor Mel Gibson. Gibson had lost those rights after a domestic violence conviction. Oyer said she was told by a senior official that Mel Gibson ought to get his gun rights back because he was a personal friend of President Trump, because that was apparently a top Justice Department priority in Trump's first weeks back in office. Now more than ever, I think we have clarity on what Trump is doing with the pardon power, and it seems like a really important part of his overall authoritarian project. Trump, of course, pardoned everyone charged with attacking the Capitol on January 6th, including people who were in prison for assaulting police officers. He's pardoned pretty much every single Republican congressman convicted of corruption this century. He pardoned a crypto exec who pled guilty to violating anti-money laundering and sanctions laws. Trump signed that pardon after his own family reportedly made billions of dollars in a partnership with that crypto executive's company. And now today, Trump has issued pardons to 77 people who were part of the scheme to overturn the 2020 presidential election and keep Trump in power even after he lost to Joe Biden. What we are seeing in action here is something that always before just made sense on paper, but now we're seeing it in life. In an authoritarian government, unilateral king-like powers to punish and to protect from punishment is one of the most efficient means for a would-be dictator to cement his power.
5,000. That's the number of DOJ employees that have left since Trump returned to office. Bro, that's not turnover. That's a witness protection program. Rachel said the DOJ can't attract top talent. Sir, top talent? They can't attract middle talent, lower middle talent, dollar store talent, or that one intern who only shows up for pizza. People are leaving the DOJ faster than Americans leave a restaurant when the waitress says, "We actually don't accept coupons." Imagine working at the DOJ now. Today's assignment, write a legal argument defending a pardon for Mel Gibson's gun rights because he's Trump's friend. I would simply walk into the ocean. This isn't an administration. This is a loyalty test written in crayon. Rachel's delivery was so stern, I'm convinced she was actually trying to scare the American public straight. And she succeeded.
Let me get this straight. 5,000 DOJ employees left? 5,000. That's not a workforce. That's a mass migration event. That's the Oregon Trail, but with lawyers. People are leaving the DOJ like someone announced, today's lunch special is microwaved bat soup. Rachel said the DOJ can't attract applicants, and I believe her. Who wants to work at a place where the job description is, must be comfortable defending policies written by a man who thinks the Constitution is a Waffle House menu? Trump's DOJ is like a toxic workplace. TikTok, signs you should quit your job immediately. The president wants you to restore Mel Gibson's gun rights because they're buddies. Your boss fires you for not pardoning someone who once vlogged inside Nancy Pelosi's broom closet. The break room only has Diet Coke. The DOJ hasn't been gutted. It's been cleared out like a Spirit Halloween store in November. This isn't an administration. It's a crime family internship program. And Rachel covered it with the same energy as a woman who has watched the same sinkhole open under her house every single year.
Liz Oyer is the former pardon attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice. Before that, she was a federal public defender. I have to tell you, she's on Substack now as Lawyer Oyer, which is very hard to say. But we called Liz Oyer today to be here when we learned of President Trump's latest 77 pardons. Pardons to fake electors and others who helped Trump try to overturn the results of the 2020 election to stay in power despite him losing his bid for re-election. Liz Oyer, thank you so much for being here. It's a real pleasure to have you with us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
So first, let me just get your reaction, your top line reaction to these new pardons today from President Trump.
Donald Trump just issued a blank check to break the law in the name of Donald Trump. He is telling his supporters, do what you have to do in support of Donald Trump. I've got your back. You won't have to suffer the consequences that the law carries. It's really very chilling in this environment to think about what this could license these folks to do in the future. We've got midterm elections coming up again in a year. We've got all sorts of threats of political violence in this country, and Donald Trump seems to be telling his supporters, do what you have to do in my name, and I will protect you.
There have been some state-level prosecutions that overlap with or intersect with some of these same issues. There's a sort of paused prosecution in Arizona, sort of potential prosecution in Georgia. There's somebody already in jail in Colorado, all under state charges. Obviously, a federal pardon, we're used to thinking of that as having absolutely no implication for state charges, but they seem to be, in the Trump administration, sort of tilting at state prosecutions as well, at least rhetorically, if not in a technical legal sense. What do you make of that?
Yeah, one of the few established limitations on the president's pardon power is that it applies only to offenses against the United States. That's written in the Constitution, and that means federal crimes, not state law crimes. Donald Trump seems to be testing the limits of the president's constitutional authority by pardoning what are really state law offenses. All of the individuals who are listed in this pardon proclamation, to the extent they've been charged at all, have been charged with crimes under state law, with which the president clearly does not have the authority to pardon under the language of the Constitution. But Donald Trump is being egged on by his pardon attorney, a man named Ed Martin, who is a known MAGA loyalist and probably falls within the scope of this pardon, frankly, because he was the leader of the Stop the Steal movement. So this pardon broadly purports to forgive any crimes related to the overturning of the 2020 election, whether state or federal, and that far exceeds the established boundaries of the pardon power under law.
Rachel Maddow basically said Trump is experimenting with the Constitution like it's a TikTok filter. She's right. You can only pardon federal crimes. That's in the Constitution. Like written, printed, bound, historically notarized. But Trump said, actually, I will be pardoning everything. Federal, state, spiritual, emotional, cosmic, metaphysical. If you committed it in my name, I got you, homie. This man is handing out pardons like Oprah. You get a pardon. You get a pardon. You get a pardon. Arizona gets a pardon. Georgia gets a pardon. The parking ticket you got in 2016, pardoned. Rachel looked directly into the camera like, I cannot believe I have to say this out loud on television. It's wild when a political segment sounds like a tutorial from a high school civics teacher who has officially snapped. The moment she said, testing the limits of presidential authority, I bought a helmet, just in case.
Rachel Maddow basically walked on screen and said, Trump is now pardoning crimes the Constitution doesn't even recognize. And honestly, I'm surprised he hasn't started pardoning people for emotional damage. Trump treats the Constitution like IKEA furniture. I don't need instructions. I'll just use whatever screws are left over. He is literally trying to pardon state crimes. That's like trying to use a Starbucks gift card at the DMV. You can try, but the cops will be involved. Georgia, Arizona, Colorado, Trump is speed running the states like he's trying to unlock secret levels. And poor Rachel, she had to stand there explaining for the 900th time, you cannot pardon a state crime unless the laws of reality collapse. And America said, bet. Trump is not testing constitutional limits. He is lighting them on fire and roasting marshmallows over the ashes. This isn't authoritarianism. This is dollar store authoritarianism, the kind that breaks before you get home.
You're suggesting that Ed Martin may have sort of just written a pardon for himself today?
It certainly seems like he is one of the folks who would fall within the scope of this pardon. It's very broadly worded to apply potentially to hundreds of people who were involved in these types of activities, not just the 77 people who are listed in this document. Ed Martin has repeatedly made known that his mantra is no MAGA left behind. In the context of pardons, he believes the pardon power should be used broadly to benefit anyone who is loyal to and supportive of Donald Trump, those who take risks on behalf of Donald Trump. Ed Martin has got their backs as pardon attorney, and that's what this proclamation today seems to reflect.
Liz Oyer, former Justice Department pardon attorney. The contrast between your service and what Ed Martin's doing could not be more stark. Thank you for helping us understand this tonight.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Oh, we got to talk about Ed Martin. Rachel Maddow basically described this man as the human embodiment of the phrase, "Don't worry, bro, I know a guy." According to Liz Oyer, the real former pardon attorney, Ed Martin may have literally written a pardon that covers himself. Sir, that's not a pardon. That's a buy one felony, get one free coupon. Imagine working in the White House and saying, hey, Ed, should we really pardon people involved in overthrowing the election? And Ed is like, yes. And also anyone whose name rhymes with bed, smartin. Pure coincidence. Rachel's face during that conversation looked like she just smelled the entire Supreme Court left in a hot car. Maddow said the contrast between Oyer and Martin could not be more stark. And she was right. Oyer is a lawyer, and Martin is a motivational speaker for people who failed civics class. Trump's pardon office is now one guy who believes in no MAGA left behind, a printer, and a legal doctrine called Trust Me, Bro. This isn't a government. This is Waffle House at 2 a.m.
Ed Martin, the pardon attorney, the man in charge of legal mercy, the man who allegedly wrote a pardon that included himself. Sir, that is not a pardon attorney. That is a cartoon supervillain with a Word document. When Liz Oyer said he might have pardoned himself, I screamed. Trump's pardon office isn't a legal institution. It's the world's worst HR department. Imagine working there. Hey, should we pardon all the guys who tried to overturn democracy? Yeah, and also me. Put me on the list for morale. Rachel Maddow said the contrast between Oyer and Martin was stark. Of course it is. Oyer is a professional. Ed Martin is a Pinterest board of legal crimes. Their office motto isn't equal justice, it's no MAGA left behind. That sounds like a Vegas tour package. This isn't governing, it's buy one felony, get one free night at Margaritaville. And Trump is the guy at the bar yelling, shots for everyone. No, seriously, shots for everyone. Somebody call the sheriff, things are about to get spicy. Rachel handled this like a woman reporting live from inside the eye of a Category 5 constitutional hurricane. And honestly, I respect her because she stayed calm while explaining that America's pardon system is now being run by the world's loudest group chat.